Hi everyone out there in Instagram land. Doesn't look like we have any viewers yet, but we're gonna go season 1, episode 1 of the, what's our celebrity couple name? Lawn Randy. LaRandy.
LaRandy. LaRandy would be it.
Rawn. Rondi.
Ron's on the wall behind you, so I think it's Rawn.
Who is it?
Right here. Just the word Rawn.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
No, on the literal wall. Yeah.
That's so weird. Okay.
I think it's from Billy.
Okay, so this is definitely the Rawn podcast.
The Rawn podcast.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we are going to post this, so why don't we brainstorm for a second, like, while we're waiting for people to pop in or whatever, like, if we were going to have, like, an opening, you know, like, how we open the session, like, what would that look like so they know consistently, like, we're going to start the conversation?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question.
Yeah, so if it's like, this is the Rawn podcast, what's our, like...
Well, we would have to include something like...
Hi, Nikki!
We talk about... Hi!
Hey, my friend!
Tarot and tattoos. So,
yes, tarot and tattoos, for sure.
That sound...
Something cliche and catchy.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll think about that one. So it's like, we have like a name of the podcast and like the subtitle. Tarot and tattoos. I love that.
The Rawn podcast, Tarot and Tattoos.
Hi, beautiful people. The Rawn podcast, Tarot and Tattoos. Actually, like, that might be it. Yeah, I don't like to think too deeply on things, and it feels forced, for sure. Hi, everyone out there in Instagram land. I was going to say Facebook. I know what day it is. I know what's going on. I'm an adult.
We know what app we're using.
We know what app we're using on the on the interwebs. That's very millennial of me to say. So I'm here today with my friend Lawn at Taboo Tattoo.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today, Lawn. I have asked her to interview me a little informally with a little bit of structure to just talk about what I've been doing here at Taboo. And we really want to break down the barriers, I guess, and encourage people to come by and say hi and get a tattoo and come meet me too and maybe get a reading or not. That's also cool. Hugs are free. And I really want to, I guess, break down, like, the silos and the stereotypes and the stigma and the skepticism, which is all very healthy, typical, normal human experiences about what we've been doing over here. Yeah. What goals do you think we should have today, or do you think I kind of hit them all?
I think you pretty much hit them all.
Yeah, I think that's what it would look like, for sure. We have one viewer. Let's see, we still have my one solid ride or die there in the viewers. We'll give it, like, let's see if we can get, like, 2 or 3 people, and then we'll start asking, like, the first question. So in the meantime, I would love for you guys to post your questions in the comments. It looks like I can see the comments, so that's always good. Yes. I don't know if that's good or bad yet, but it's good for now. Just like, what do you want to know? Like, what would you be curious about us talking about today or talking about in the future? Because this is possibly season 1, episode 1 of the Rawn Rawn podcast, Tarots and Tattoo?
Yeah, Tarot and Tattoos.
I like that. I think that's catchy. Like, it doesn't get much catchier than that, that's for sure. Where are we located, Lawn?
We are located on Broad Street in Keyport, 242 Broad Street in Keyport, New Jersey.
Awesome.
It's a very fun little town, little seaside town. We're in like this antique sort of old building. I don't know how old this building is.
This building that we're in right now. Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit of a historical piece of...
Yeah, it is definitely
everyone
interesting.
I talk to is like, oh, I know that building.
Oh, okay, okay. If someone was going to be in the Keyport area, other than obviously coming by to see us and saying hello, what would you recommend as far as like a food or an activity or anything?
I say McDonough's is
McDonough's. I like McDonough's too. I had their shepherd's pie. It was good.
Is solid food, solid service, and just good vibes generally.
Really good vibes, solid food, and solid service, for sure. And
also, like, I feel like this whole town kind of has this, like, historic kind of, like, haunted feeling.
It is all, cute like, and ancient in a fun, like, Civil War era way almost. Yeah. Like, I feel like there's definitely some history here. I love going down to the Keyport waterfront. Shout out to the Keyport Fishery. Your crab cakes and shrimp cocktail are always on point. With the waterfront, I just feel like it's a super relaxed vibe because there's picnic benches, but there's, like, also people fishing. So sometimes there's fish guts.
Yeah.
So it's very real. Like, I don't feel like it's too touristy almost. Like, it's a local spot for sure. So that always makes me feel good when it's not inundated with everybody from the surrounding towns and states. Like, it's a very much local vibe for sure. How long have you been here at Taboo?
I have been here at Taboo for 2 years.
2 years, yes. Okay. And I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary of hanging out here. Yes. I'm excited about that. I feel like my favorite part of being... Actually, so the question we asked is, what's your favorite part about being at Taboo? Well, we're hoping to get a couple more viewers. I feel like my favorite part of being at Taboo is, like, I can come as I am. Like, sometimes I'm on my A game and I have, like, great energy. I'm, like, very high energy and just excited to, like, plug in and find a way to, like, participate here. And other days, I just want to sit and watch. And, like, that's totally okay. So I feel like I can be met where I'm at most of the time. Of course, it's, like, a different vibe because I'm not, like, the owner. So shout out to Diane for making this all possible. We love you. But I feel like as someone who's trying to find a way to plug in here, you know, that there's respectable ways to say, like, this is what I have to give today, and they honor that here.
Yeah, Diane is the best, and, like, just the most understanding boss that I've ever had. Cool. Any of my struggles, she's like, you know, she's got me.
She's got your back. That's a good feeling.
Always,
yeah. It's hard to find bosses, and I understand, like, boundaries and stuff, especially in larger corporate settings, but bosses that also remember we're people. And not just employees. So 2 points for Diane. We appreciate you. Alright, so I think we'll get started. So again, I'm Randy. This is my friend Lawn. This is the Rawn and... I'm gonna have to say it smoothly. You say it.
The Rawn podcast, Tarot and Tattoos.
There we go. Yeah. That's a season 1, episode 1. You're welcome. You're watching history being made right now, for sure. Alright, so why don't you go ahead and open us up with whatever question you feel drawn to get started.
Yeah, fantastic. So, what inspired you to start your spiritual journey?
Oh man, what's inspired me to get started? I think that the more I get to know the spiritual community, I realize that I don't know if I necessarily got to choose as far as, like, my experiences, but I do feel like I got to intentionally channel my energy in a productive way. Mm-hmm. So I don't think the spiritual path is one that many of us get to just be like, you know what, today I'm gonna, like, tap into that and, you know, be a part of something greater than me as far as, like, energy and the spirit of everything around us. So at a very young age, I had, like, really intense spiritual experiences. Looking back, I see that's what was happening. So I was talking to people that weren't there, loved ones that had passed on, spiritual beings. Having lucid dreams of people that had passed on or places that I had never been. So that was really interesting. But what I really chose was actually just really in this last year because I wasn't in crisis anymore. After many years of, like, homelessness and all sorts of struggles, I was kind of like, okay, like, I have this calling that's been there my whole life. It's time to do something with, like, this, I mean, gift, energy, power, whatever verbiage works for you is cool with me. But I do feel a sense of duty to that.
Do you have any, like, specific accounts of, like, your lucid dreams or anything that you remember from when you were younger?
Oh, yes. Okay, for sure. So I've had some repeat dreams over the years, but one that, one looking back that I really knew was, like, kind of unpacking things for me and, like, I've been doing is I had a dream one night that I was with a man that I perceived to be a father figure, and he took me for a ride in the sky on his back. So we were flying through the sky, which is very beautiful. And I just remember feeling very safe with this entity. And then he took me back to a log cabin, and there was, like, no electricity. Like, it was, like, off-grid. And we sat at a table also made of wood. Like, I felt like the whole space had been, like, handmade either by him or, like he had a hand in making it. And we were sitting at a wooden table looking out a window, and there was a body of water out there. And he was like, this is our home. And I didn't know what that meant or who this was. And I described the dream to my mother shortly after that. And she was like, that's your biological dad. You know, we lived in a cabin on a lake with no electricity that was handmade. And I didn't know any of those things at that time. So in the moment, I knew something was happening there. Like, I knew that there was a connection. But looking back, I'm like, you can't. Like, I couldn't have made that up if I tried. Like, there was no way for me to pull that information out of, I'm guessing I was maybe 8. Like, I was still preteen, for sure.
Yeah, that's something I like, that makes me feel like I owe you credibility, is, like, when you've done readings for me, things that you say that, like, you know, chills will run down my spine, because it's like, there's no way you just
pulled
that out of nowhere, you know?
And that's important, I think, for anyone in the spiritual, that's dabbling in the spiritual practice, whether they are just beginning or very seasoned, is, I sometimes, and to this day, I still struggle with, it's like, am I crazy? Am I making this up? Like, where is this coming from? But when consistently every person you sit with and read for, such as Lawn, I've done more than one reading for Lawn, says there's no way you could have known that, like, you made an impact, like, thank you so much, like, I needed this, I'm like, okay, like, you need to hear what the people around you are saying, and stop doubting yourself.
Alright, what does spirituality mean to you?
What does spirituality mean to me? That's such like a
open-ended.
Very open-ended, yes. But I wanted it to be open-ended. Okay, here we are. We're back. Hey. So what does spirituality mean to me? So, like, in its most basic, like, infant concept, to me, spirituality is the belief in anything beyond what we can physically see and touch.
Right.
So when I meet with people who are still exploring their spirituality, or maybe coming from a point of even a really extreme, which is atheism, right? The belief that there's no creative aspect to the world that we live in, I encourage them to think, just what can we see that possibly holds a creative hand? So I usually refer to Mother Nature, right? We don't get to choose the storms, the weather, how the earth moves, things like that. And when we look at the earth through the creative lens, I feel like it's hard to deny that there's any creative sense there. And I talk about, like, the power of waterfalls and the power of a thunderstorm. Like, we have visceral physical reactions to those things. So for people to say there's no room for creation of any of that, I struggle with that. Like, I do struggle with that because to me it's so undeniable. So for me, spirituality at its form, just to, like, kind of recap, is believing in anything that we can't physically see or touch and believe that there's more. And that looks different for everyone. Right? So what spirituality looks like to me is going to look different for you, look different for Lawn, whoever. But for me, on, like, a more personal note, I perceive myself as being a spiritual being having a human experience. Yeah. I believe this is all very temporary, and just one very tiny piece. Like, our physical human experience on this plane, on this planet, is just one of what I perceive to be an infinite amount of worlds or phenomenons or timelines, like, people use different verbiage there, that are happening all at once. And then also what's carried me through that is, like, the belief in something bigger than me. So, like, I do perceive one mass energy that we all kind of come from. So it's like we all kind of go back to, like, this source, like the source, and the path is enlightenment to get to the source. But if we broke that down a little bit smaller, like, there's the great teachers of our time. We can talk about Jesus and Buddha and the Dalai Lama and all these awesome and very powerful teachers that have landed on this earth that I think are the bridging the gap. So I still am always ever growing, ever changing. Like, I'm a student of the universe, and what spirituality means to me right now might look different at 6 o'clock tonight or 6 days from now or whatever that looks like. So I know that was a little, like, busy of an answer, but it's so important to me that there's no cookie cutter. Right. There's no black and white answer. So what spirituality means to me doesn't have to look like yours, but I will say that, like, if it's not love, it's not right. So when I've perceived different energies and entities over my lifetime, and I think, is this the truth? Is this what I need to align with? I always come back to the same answer, like, to my core, which is this represent love? And if the answer is no, then that's not for me. And I believe that all higher powers, whatever name we call them, are coming from a source of love. That was a big answer.
That was a lot to take in.
Yeah. I can feel like I could keep going, but yeah, I just really want to make sure that it's explained that, like, it's love. It's love, and it's things sometimes that we can't always see or feel. It's thinking past what our senses typically pick up, like seeing, tasting, hearing, touching, things like that, smelling. Looking past the what?
I'm smelling my sweatshirt still.
I have a visceral Wawa experience when I sit with Lawn.
Yes.
I just really need, like, an Italian sub right now.
Yeah, honestly. I missed out on my free shorty today, but it's fine.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's okay. Alright, are there certain things that you do, that you practice to keep yourself connected to your spirituality?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm realizing more and more as I, like, develop and tune into this ability that I have, the most important thing is time for rest and reflection, which ultimately leads to a sense of restoration. So I pour out a lot when I do readings for people, when I sit with people, even intentionally or unintentionally. Even if I just care about someone and maybe we're not having an intentional, like, spiritual experience, I still pour out. So for now, restoration looks like two things. One, taking time alone. I need to be alone. I need to be relaxing. And that doesn't mean scrolling on my phone. That means, like, literally often, to be honest, sitting in silence.
Yeah.
It's sitting in silence. It's staring at the wall. It's taking
sitting with your thoughts.
Sitting with my thoughts and processing, because my pattern has always been to just go, and then just burn out. But in order for me to be, like, the wounded healer that I keep striving to become, I realize that means taking time to heal my wounds, whether small or big scale. And I don't know how else to do that without an element of solitude, because I do need the people that I love, which I'm going to touch on in just a second. But, like, those solitude moments for, like, all my parts to catch up. So, like, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like, I need all of that to kind of get back into alignment. Because throughout the day, we get pulled, in physical tasks, emotional tasks, spiritual tasks, mental tasks. And those parts of us, I feel, kind of get pulled out of whack, but all within parameters. So I need to take time throughout the day, ideally. But if I miss a day, I feel it. Like, I feel it. If I took no time to reflect and regroup, I feel it. And then second to that would be finding a balance between pouring into people and being poured into. So I am naturally just, like, a giver. It's so, like, an innate trait for me to, like, even if they don't even say they're struggling, like, I can sense it and I want to pour into that. But I realize now that I need to find the balance of also tapping into people that breathe life into me. Like, you know who you are. If you're watching this, you know who you are, because I'll say it to you. People that, it's more of a back and forth. Like, we can have conversations about our struggles, but I don't feel like I'm pouring in so much as I'm absorbing. And also recognizing are the relationships in my life, what people are always draining. So, like, reflecting on, like, if this one person over so many years is just always pulling my energy, then I feel like I need to reflect. Like, am I still a good fit in that person's life? Are they a good fit in mine? And not in, like, a mean or nasty way, but, like, sometimes I feel like I enable because I want to help. And I think that sometimes taking a step back to protect my own energy and to give them a chance to grow is what's best. It doesn't always have to be forever. But yeah, so finding a balance between solitude and finding ways to fill my cup. I don't remember what the question was. What was the question?
The question was certain things that you do to keep yourself connected to your spirituality.
Yeah. So I'd say those would be, like, the restorative practices. And then as far as, like, my actual practice, it looks like a couple different things. At the most base that requires no tools is, like, tapping into my inner garden and connecting with my spirit guides. And it doesn't take a lot, but it's easier. It happens in more depth if I have quiet alone time. So that's part of what I do sometimes in that alone time. And checking in with them and bringing myself into harmony. So when I check in with the spirit guides who are, like, all-knowing, all-seeing, it's not the he said, she said bullshit. What's that song by, is it Limp Bizkit? My millennial friends are going to yell at me. But, like, there's that sense of harmony without bias because they only want what's best for me. And I don't have to worry about any drama or hurting people's feelings, including my own, because they'll be super blunt with me. So that's an element of it. There is, like, prayer and meditation, praying to a higher power who I sometimes choose to call God, or other names to feel, like, a little bit of, like, divine connection. So it's like, I need your strength right now. Or sometimes I'll literally ask to be put in the path of someone who needs me that day. Like, I'll say, how can I be of service today? And asking the universe to do that. Because I think if we don't ask, then we don't always receive. And then I'd say within those parameters, there's tarot cards. We're going to talk about tarot cards in a minute. But tarot cards to me are just kind of like a tool or a seasoning as part of what I do, because it's, like, such a deeper level, I think, of what I bring to the table. Whereas the cards can be kind of like a fun way to, like, talk about a spirit animal or bug or, I don't know, there's all sorts of things in here. There's a phoenix, there's a dragon, like, whatever you have going on. And then there's also being in nature. So anytime I'm dysregulated, if I can submerge myself in nature, especially the beach, the ocean is really big for me. Like, it's just healing and cleansing and just brings me to harmony no matter what. So if you see me at the beach at 10 o'clock at night, mind your business, okay? Like, that's what I'm doing.
That's the best time to go to
That's the best time to go.
Yes.
I know.
I feel like, because, like, your visual is, like, you know, if everything's
off.
dark, you're so much more in tune with,
yes.
with the waves and the wind blowing and everything. It's
absolutely.
beautiful.
I love what you're talking about, though, not being able to see.
Right.
Because it does take away from it. So my favorite time to go to the beach is after sunset, especially a little later in the night when the people kind of, like, really scattered away.
Right.
Because to put my toes in the ocean and just, like, sometimes I'll literally just, like, scream, sob, whatever I need to get out in that moment. Sometimes I could be feeling anxious. I know that I can give that to her, and it feels reciprocal. Like, I feel like there's a connection with the ocean and, like, the water and the movement that I feel like a welcome home in that moment. I don't feel like it's just me showing up to, like, dump my bullshit on the beach.
Right.
I feel like a reciprocal, like, she's glad I'm there. I'm glad I'm there. Like, she thanks me for the work that I'm doing, not just for, like, the world, but the work that I'm doing on a personal level. And I feel like she will rejuvenate me and give me direction in that moment when I connect with the waters at a local level. Yeah. I don't remember what the question was again. But
Still, keeping in touch with your spirituality.
Yes,
so
yes. So nature.
We've
Nature's
covered
a big one.
rest, nature, taking a step back from people who are, like, energy vampires.
Yes, energy vampires for sure.
Talking to a higher power, you know, through prayer and meditation. And then nature, so.
I feel like if I was going to add anything to that, it would really just be, like, a sense of openness. You know, like, I think that organized religion has a time and a place. Absolutely, and it's what got me started. You know, I was raised in a Catholic household, and it was the first time I had a name, you know, such as saying the word God to put to the entity that I'd been connecting with long before I ever went to church or CCD or anything like that. But I think it's important to just say, like, is there more here? And being open to that answer, because it can be uncomfortable, for sure. If everything we've ever known is within, you know, parameters of a very strict guideline, and you feel like maybe there's more, it can be uncomfortable, but I will also say that, like, even though loss is hard, it can double as an alignment. So loss is alignment, and even though it's still a loss and it sucks and it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good, if the loss is centered towards alignment, then you're really opening yourself up for something more beautiful. So, yeah, I think that probably covers the gamut. I'm sure I'll think of something else, but yeah.
All right, let's jump into things actually about tarot. So, what is tarot?
Yes.
For the people who
yes.
who have never heard
heard of tarot. Maybe every once in a while I'll meet people that have never had a reading or really know much about it, but most people have at least heard of it. So I have a couple decks here with me today. I'll show my 3 that I've been that I was drawn to share with you today. So I have my pocket animal spirit deck. You can kind of see there. So I'll show you some of the cards. Then I have the Winds of Change, which was passed down through my family. I'm really excited for this deck. I've been using this more. And then I have more of a traditional deck called Ethereal Visions, but this also includes cards that are unique to that artist. So I don't know a ton about, like, the actual, like, history of tarot, but I will say that it goes back so far that when I think about it on a spiritual level, it's hard to define the pinpoint in time where it started, because I feel like it's taken shape over years, like a little bit of a shape-shifting practice, because I feel like it's also in the same category as, like, runes and anything that we use as a tool in the physical life. So I feel like tarot can be grouped with, I already said runes, tea leaf reading, crystal balls, like anything that a physical representation is happening in the spirit world. But to me, tarot is ultimately just a way for me to act more of a vessel. So I love opening with a bug or animal card. We'll start with that, actually. We'll play with these while I'm talking. It kind of gives me a talking point and can gain insight as to what is going on. So I always love to ask people, what do you already know about tarot? So Lawn, tell me, what do you already know about tarot?
I know that I mispronounced it for a long time.
Oh, how did you call it?
Tarot.
Tarot.
I love
like
that,
a
actually.
carrot.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna go next door and get a tarot salad. And see if they catch them. Like, no, not carrots. Tarrots. Can I have tarrots? Yeah, with the gorgonzola.
Tarrots.
I know a guy.
Yeah, no, my friend back in, like, middle school or something got a deck, and you know, we dabbled a little bit. no idea, like, what it was, how
what you were doing,
yeah. We were just, like, pulling cards and reading, you know, from the book what they meant.
I love that. I mean, that's how sometimes it has to be playful to get started, you know, I love that, so, for sure.
That was my introduction, into what I was first calling tarot, but I think most of what I know now is through you, and through what you do, and, just that, not all of the symbols that like death, you know, would be perceived as something negative potentially.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. A lot of symbolism.
To look at it, yes.
Can you repeat that again? That the death doesn't usually represent.
Death doesn't necessarily mean anything is dying.
Yes.
You know,
not in the physical sense, at least.
Right. But yeah, I think you know, again, you gotta like.
Yeah, we're just talking about like. Your experience with tarot. I'm only gonna say tarot now. Your experience with tarot and yeah.
Yeah, that like just because, you know, if you look at a card, it doesn't mean exactly what is presented to you. And
symbolism.
Yes,
for sure.
There's a lot of symbolism to it, and that, you know, it's not. I don't think it's anything. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but. You know, when you do readings for me, you're not, like, predicting my future. It's more of a guiding, you know,
sure.
Like, reflect and guide sort of practice. So it's like, you know, things...
I always think of tarot like advice, you know, like take what works for you and leave the rest. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't, you know, make significant changes without reflecting first because the card maybe said something, so...
Right. So, yeah, just, that's pretty much all that I know, that it's a good way to, like, it's like therapy almost in a sense, you know, reflect on what you're dealing with, what you have dealt with, what you may deal with in the future, and like you were, you know, talking about, like, you're just focus on your alignment, what, you know, what will bring you to your next level, whatever.
Absolutely, the leveling up. I love that. Awesome, that's good. I love hearing you talk about it, so that's cool. I'm glad that that's been your experience, especially with me. So I would love to maybe, in a future episode, I'll do a little more research about, like, hard facts about tarot, because I'm a nerd. I love to spiral and rabbit hole. And what's the word that they're using right now in the neurodivergent community? It's, like, hyper-focus.
Yes.
On topics like that, because growing up, I loved doing book reports, because there was, like, a very strict format of, like, compiling information.
I think that's a sentence no one else has ever
I
loved doing book reports.
Okay, let me give the caveat. I love doing book reports because in the 90s there was a very clear structure. You know, like, it was even how you wrote it. It was like, you know, the title of the book report, you know, what or who you were researching, if it was a biography. I remember doing a book report on a platypus once, like, whatever you want to do a book report on, but I loved the structure because it gave me parameters to learn within, but also kind of hone it. You know what I mean? Because if you just want to research, you know, skeletons or tarot or a certain person, it's easy to kind of, like... So I'd always be looking, you know, if it was a person, for instance, like their birth and death date and where they were born. And so to me, it was like a fun, structured way to gather information. So I'll do a tarot book report for y'all. Get back to you on that. Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever said that in the history of ever.
I've never heard that sentence spoken before, so... But...
There's a first time for everything. Any neurospicy people, if you also love book reports, I'd love to hear about it. Maybe I'm not alone. I can't be alone, right? Like, there's got to be someone else out there that... enjoyed that. No, I'm alone. That's cool. It's fine. Everything's fine. Okay, so I'm going to draw a card for y'all out there in Instagram land on the interwebs. So when I'm shuffling, even if we met in a one-on-one, I always remind people that I'm shuffling for an element of truth. It is great to also hear what we want to hear, but I'm very much focused on, like, is there something that needs to be said? What do we need to hear right now? But also recognizing that if the card is, like, fun and playful and joyous, awesome, let's talk about that. But if the cards do be a little uncomfortable or reflective of something going on, let's talk about that too in a constructive way. Like, I never want to leave someone with a big pile of poop and be like, good luck now, like, here's your pile of crap, like, you can figure it out. So I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to take a deep breath, and you'll see me shuffling. I suggest you to do the same. So we'll do, I see people doing these live readings, and I never really know what to think. So it's like a card for I was thinking about the elevation of, like, you know, the human existence. But also, like, maybe you need to hear this card on a personal level. Alright, we have the spider. I love the spider. It's one of my favorites. You can see that cool artwork on there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. Pretty cool.
Little rainbow web.
Yeah, rainbow web. So with this deck, it's a little wordier than others. So I'm actually going to read for you the insight or the definition associated with this card. And then if we were doing a one-on-one reading, I would then ask you, like, we'd unpack it a little bit. So, like, how does this reflect? If I already feel called to say something specific, I would share that. But I feel like when you sit with me, it's more of a conversation. You know, like, it's great if I'm just talking and feeling the air, but it's more helpful if we kind of guide it together and, like, what that looks like. Okay, so the spider, I'm going to hold that up for them real quick. Yes. Creator of prosperity through life's work, Dharma. The spider is an ingenious creator. Its greatest gift is weaving the thread of Dharma into a vast, intricate web that supports the spider and those around it, both financially and spiritually. It is hard work, but the spider neither tires nor becomes impatient. This card reminds us creativity is everywhere. Be process-oriented rather than results-oriented, and soon your work becomes like weaving a magical, priceless tapestry. Abundance flows. When in balance, appreciative, enthusiastic, prosperous. When out of balance, discouraged, tired, forlorn. To bring in a balance, playful creativity. I feel like we all are the spider sometimes. What do you think when you hear that card? Is there anything that you want to share that you reflect on, either for you personally or just like the human existence?
Just like, you know, what stood out to me was talking about like constantly working.
Yes, always working.
Yeah, so like I think everyone can relate to that.
Yes,
you know,
always doing something, right?
Unless you're just, you know, born into some situation where you're more comfortable than the general public, but yeah.
Yes, even if you're born into those situations, they'll lift us up with you. Yes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
You then have the power to do that. That's awesome. Okay, and then I'll just show this other deck real quick. So some cards like that one come with like a lot of words, and then cards like this. So this is from a deck called The Winds of Change. And the artwork on it, I love it because it reminds me of like cave drawings. Like a little, it's giving beginning of time. It's giving, what's that rock formation this is referencing? Stonehenge. And I'll give you an example. So like, let's say we wanted to read the card that represents Stonehenge. It says Great Spirit Incarnation. So when I find that in my book, it just has a couple of words, and then it gives me a chance to interpret a little bit more. Which is awesome to me because some people need a lot of words, some people don't need a lot of words. And it's okay either way, it's just different. I lost my card. Let's see. Bird flying, bird hatching, tree hand, standing stones. Here we go. So it says the key words would be standing stones, symbols, and myths, meaning physical forms can become symbolic of inner truths. Become aware of your patterns, creating myths and context in order to explore and grow within. I love this card. That's really powerful to me. I'm always looking for the reflection of like what's going on the inside to pour it into the outside, and how do I kind of like harmonize it all together, for sure. Those are fun. I don't know, should we do like more in the next episode? Should we do like a card per episode? You know, like we do like the general.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah,
that could be a good opening. You know, like an animal.
Familiarized, yes, with all of them.
What that looks like for sure. Cool. All right, what's next on the docket?
Well, what does your current practice look like? But I feel like, did we come
kind of touch on that?
Yeah, I feel like we touched on that already.
Yeah, I feel like I already kind of ran the gamut in the, I think it was what does spirituality mean to me. And it's ever growing. You know, I didn't even touch on like incense and altars and a little bit of spells I've been dabbling with and manifestation. So it's always kind of like stewing and growing for me, but I think that's a very like healthy thing, right? Because I don't want to become too rigid, which is like, okay, this works, I'm never going to change because the world around me is always changing. So.
Who or what cultures have influenced you?
I love that question. So when I think about cultures and people that have influenced me over my lifetime, I think back to my earliest memory of being raised in Catholicism. So even though I knew pretty much immediately that there was going to be more to spirituality to me from that, I still learned everything I could. So I felt like even as far back as I can remember, I was trying to gather information, process, and regroup and spit it back out in a way that made sense for me. So like traditional church, like we'd go to church on Sundays, I went to CCD on Wednesdays. And even though I always felt, how do I say this? I never felt like I was there fully. I felt like I was almost like a little bit of espionage. Like I was there to learn and gather, but I knew very young that I was not going to submerge myself in the whole way as far as believing everything that represents. When I think about also growing up, I think about my parents, especially my mom, who always encouraged me to pray. She would always tell me it's going to be okay, to pray and to formulate that in a way that was healthy. And although that shifted a little bit for me as I've gotten older, that's always my go-to, especially when things are hard, but I've also learned to implement it when things are good, is to pray. Say thank you, or I need help, or whatever that is, because to internalize it, or to only look to the physical world with those things, it's just so limiting. And I feel like there's so much more. But if I look, past childhood to now, I think, I've researched probably not every religion, because there's always new ones, right? But organized religion, I think, has a lot of similarities as far as, like, what God or higher power represents and what God is going to be offering us. I love seeing people's different practices. So I love in the Muslim community how they actually touch their head to the ground. I feel so drawn to that because, like, that grounding technique to literally have my face to the earth. I will do that, especially when I'm doing yoga. Like, I will lay in child's pose with my forehead to the dirt, because I just feel like so centered and grounded in that moment. When I was a teenager, I had an amazing therapist named Wendy Halley. So Wendy, if you see this, shout out. I love you. She is still a practicing shaman to this day in Vermont. She runs a business called Lucid Path or Lucid Healing now, something like that. And she has some really great energy techniques. She also has I don't even know what her most recent piece of awesome like architecture is, so I'm not even going to pretend to understand. But her shaman practices really carried with me in my life. So even when I wasn't practicing my spirituality, it was always in the back of my head what she taught me, which is ultimately that there's no limits. Whatever it is, it was within me. Nothing was impossible. I could do it all. And she also showed me that, a little bit of behind the scenes, because up until I was a teenager, even though I was experiencing Catholicism in a different way, I didn't really know anything else. Yeah, somehow I acquired a tarot deck, but I wasn't really sure what I was doing. And then Wendy's like, I have this ability to tap into the spirit realm and, do a healing session for you. And that changed the entire course of my life and how I view the world and how I view myself and how I view spirituality. And now when I think about people that influence me, I think a lot about the people that support me. People that say, I believe in what you do, even if they don't totally get it or understand it or whatever. People that say, like, I see you. People that say thank you. Like, those are the people that are my biggest influencers right now, because as I'm kind of finding my bravery to be more out in public with these things, there's a sense of gratitude, because, like, I'm not one of those people that probably would be doing this right now if everyone in my life was like, don't do it, or you're wrong, or that's false, or it's going to ruin your life, or whatever it is they were saying. But it's the people that love me and believe in me at this point that are really making it happen. Awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Do you feel like you have a calling?
Oh, man, yeah, let me get a drink of water on that one. Do I feel like I have a calling? The short answer is yes. I absolutely do feel like I have a calling. I almost don't want to go too in-depth today, but I'll give you this reference point. One of my earliest dreams that started repeating itself in elementary school was me ultimately leading the people I love and humanity over a bridge to safety. And I would wake up from those dreams feeling so like fired up and sometimes sweaty and having like physical reactions from the dream. because we would be crossing a bridge as it was crumbling. I would be leading these people to safety as the world around us was falling apart. And I realize now that that's probably symbolism. Hopefully I'm never leading the masses over a bridge as it's falling apart. But if we think of the bridge as things that we struggle with, if we think of the bridge as things that don't feel good, if we think of the bridge as trauma, if we think of the bridge as ideas that need to be cleared out or die, or a piece of our egos that need to be reworked, I do feel like that's my calling, is to lead people over this bridge onto the other side, because it's through my life experience of literally walking through hell and being at rock bottom, and even at my lowest point when I was homeless and nothing was working, and like I was married, I have 2 kids, we lived in a nice house, I had a nice car, I had a nice career, I had money in the bank, I had friends, like I had all these things, and I was still miserable. And then slowly over time, as things crumbled and I literally lost it all and was staying in a garage with like unable to take care of my kids in a way that was healthy anymore, that's when I realized like this is not what really mattered, and that I was going to have a turning point and pull myself out of the ethereal shit, so to speak. But I didn't do it alone. You know, humanity rallied, and people that loved me in Washington and in New Jersey made it possible for me to come out of the muck, so to speak. And it wasn't one significant moment, but it was a series of moments that got me from the West Coast back to the East Coast in a place of my own, that I was like, okay, like if I can do it, other people can do it, and I want to be what I needed in that moment. And sometimes you just need someone to reach out their hand and be like, we're going to go together. We're going to go together, like we're going to walk through this together, and whatever feeling you have is not going to be the end of you. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to destroy you. It may make you crumble. We may have to lay on the ground. We may cry. We may scream. That's all acceptable behaviors. But knowing that like there's someone in the room that's like, we're going to fucking figure this out, is the calling, you know, to lead people over that bridge, even though it's not a physical bridge, but to sit in a room with someone who is clearly distraught or has, you know, compartmentalize some trauma or whatever that looks like, whatever they're going through. And for me to sit there and be like, no, we're going to figure it out. Like, I know that that's my calling, and I do feel a duty, even on my tired days, to continue that. Which brings me back to what we said earlier about restoration and rejuvenation, because if I'm really going to take this serious and use my powers for good, because with great power comes great responsibility, then like I need to take better care of myself. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, changing my relationship with food and sleep and rest and friendships and stuff so that I can fulfill this calling also means being my strongest. Yeah. And not just letting my physical body be continually deteriorated because I've abused my body for many years. So being my best self so that I can also continue that work. Yeah, a sense of duty for sure.
All right, we've got one more question.
All right,
are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, it's been a lot, but it's been awesome.
Yeah.
But I feel I feel the draw like out of it. Yeah.
This is the one you wanted to end on.
Yes.
Right? What would you say to someone who wants to explore their spirituality?
You know, I thought I had an answer for that earlier, but I feel like it has shifted just through like hearing myself talk. For someone who wants to explore their spirituality, you know, I used to think, I don't know what I used to think. It shifted over the years, and what that's changed what it looks like and how that works. And like, at the end of the day, all it takes, like everything you need is within. That's all you need. Like you don't need tarot cards or a physical place of worship or someone else telling you you're doing the right thing. You just need that little voice saying, I can do this. And even if it's just a quiet whisper, like sometimes the whisper is so faint that if I'm not sitting completely still in dead silence, I can't hear it. And going from there. So sometimes it literally just takes you sitting down and feeling your feelings to be like, I know there's something else here. I know there's something else here. We got to see through the shit a little bit, right? Like we got to kind of swim through an ocean of trash sometimes. But the world is always going to be pulling us in a million different directions. You know, we're going to hear things, see things, feel things, experience things, friendships, kids, relationships, work, whatever. Take 30 seconds if you have to lock yourself in the bathroom. Take 30 seconds to just be like, I want to enhance my spiritual life, because we are all spiritual beings having a very human experience right now. And I want to give a shout out to the atheists who keep me grounded in science sometimes, because I need the science part of things. But I just feel like there's so many coincidences that there's none. There's too many coincidences for there to be any. So my advice to you, anyone out there, whether you're just starting your spiritual journey, or you're heavily seasoned perhaps, and maybe thinking about, what else can you do, what's different, it's to get back to the very basics, without all the smoke and mirrors and hocus pocus, so to speak, and all the very basics are inside of you. And that's all you need. Thank you so much, Lawn. I appreciate you.
Of course, for sure. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for coming to the Lawn. No, Rawn. You say it, I can't say it.
The Rawn podcast.
The Rawn podcast.
Tarot and tattoos.
Tarot and tattoos. Yes. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you guys.
Sending you so much love. Stay tuned for season 1, episode 2.
Yes.
All right, let's see if we can stop this without being too bulky. I'm the host, okay?
I think you just hit the exit.
Oh,
right?
That probably helps.